Hello everyone, Coach Dave here, and we are doing an FIA race. And you know I like to keep it as real as possible here, showing how good I am, but also how much I can. Sometimes I don't get things perfectly right. Let's just put it that way. And this was a perfect example of that happening. I wanted to prepare for this FIA race, but my day got ahead of me, and I had no time to practice properly. So I signed a contract with Ferrari and then basically logged in to the final FIA race of the day in the Manufacturers Series with 8 minutes of practice to go. Luckily I know the track in the forward direction relatively well, but in the reverse direction not so much. So it was a bit of a steep learning curve, and in qualifying I was expecting to be last, but it didn't seem to go that way. I was lucky enough to get a slipstream from the McLaren in front, Pogo. Did I get his name right? Yeah. And it was okay. I was actually pretty happy with the lap. I was only 6/10 off pole, and there were some big names in this one. I was still in the top split, even though I did a bit of a DR meltdown the day before while I was live streaming. In that live stream I didn't have a good enough qualifying in Brazil and just basically couldn't win any races. So my DR went down. I was expecting to be in the second split for this FIA race, but that didn't happen. So my number one rule was always to do as much practice as you can before the FIA races, and well, I didn't do that, did I? So we started, I think it was P13 or P14. P13, there you go, 6/10 off pole. And considering the new penalty system that Gran Turismo has just implemented, and I'm pretty sure is going to unimplement relatively quickly, I wanted to take the first lap quite easy. I was also in the Ferrari 458 in GT Sport, especially the Group 3 car, not so much the Group 4 car, suffers from snap oversteer on entry, so you have to be very, very gentle. And once the tires go on this car, I still haven't figured out a way to recover it from that kind of disaster. So I wanted to be as gentle as possible. This long quadruple apex right-hander was really going to affect my race, so I needed to be careful basically and just avoid any rear end sliding, while still reminding myself of how to drive this car, because I was kind of away on holiday for a bit, and then I got addicted to iRacing. I still am, even though it drives me nuts, and also Assetto Corsa. So because I've been dividing my attention between 3 games, I've sort of slipped off the boil, as you could say, with Gran Turismo Sport, which is probably still my most favorite to do online racing, and that's probably because I know the community best here. And I not only do I respect the other drivers quite a lot, but it seems that they also give me the time and space to do some clean racing, which I really appreciate. And in the other sims that I haven't quite found that sort of same level yet. But anyway, this year I want to spend more time again on GT Sport, because it is my most favorite one to do online racing, and I want to boost my potential here because I know what I am capable of. But at the moment we're slipping back. I think my first lap was a little bit too conservative, but again, I kind of expected that a lot of the guys were going to get penalties, but when you're racing in the top split, that's very rare, and it seemed to be the case here. However, shortly into lap 2, TX3, I just missed his name there, he ran wide and into the wall, and that was a bit of a foreshadowing for what would happen to me later in the race. So I gained a position there, and as always in the top split races, I'm always trying to get into the top 10. I think I've in the top splits once I finished 5th or something. It's incredibly difficult. The guys here, they're on a very high level in my opinion, drive really well, and basically have always just been a little bit faster than me. So if I can get into the top 10, it's usually through some form of strategy or just being smooth and waiting for mistakes to happen. But when they don't happen, that top 10 becomes a bit of a dream. That being said, I was now in P12. I just defended a move from the McLaren behind me. It's the Pogo who gave me that slipstream in qualifying. He missed out on out qualifying me by less than a tenth, and I could just credit the slipstream for that one. So I'm not going to complain. I needed a bit of luck in this race, and my plan from the beginning was to do an undercut and box a lap earlier than everyone else, and just try and save my tires as long as possible in the last 2 laps of the race. So I could either just suffer through 6 laps at the beginning and then or 6.5 laps at the beginning, 6.5 laps at the end, but I decided to just bundle it into the final lap, because often there's a lot of field spread, and if you do have a car that is high on tire wear, I always recommend that you try and slug it out at the end on the used tire, as opposed to dividing that wear through both sessions. So rather try to do an undercut, get the jump on the guys, because in this game track position is quite important, and then just see if you can survive the last lap. So the only problem here was that the other guys were just getting too far ahead of me for me to make this undercut genuinely work if I wanted to sneak into the top 10. But let's give it a go. The Stig who's in front of me, Rose_Stig, it's a very quick driver, and I was quite happy to still have him in my sights. I'm looking forward to doing more practice on this game throughout the week and prepare in a better way for the next FIA races. Probably not on Wednesday, but definitely on Saturday. Anyway, I kind of enjoyed my time off, so that was all good. It was all good. It was all worth it. And I think this is the exhibition series, if I stand corrected. And if it is that, then there's not much at stake. And even with the FIA races, I can't really compete in those because I always have day clashes. But I'll talk about my real racing when I can. I can tell you that I'll go testing soon. This track, by the way, in the forward direction, I use it for all of my coaching because it's got so many good corners in it, like different variations. It's got that double apex there, it's got a hairpin, it's got this very complex quadruple left-hander, but when I'm coaching it's a right-hander, high-speed S's, a chicane. It's really the perfect track to coach on. There I made a small mistake, ran wide, got one wheel off on the, it's not gravel but on the runoff, and it pulled me wide. And then it seemed that if you did run wide there, you actually had a lot of dirt on your tires, so I slipped and slid quite a lot. Lost a little bit of time to Pogo. He was faster. I was defending like crazy to keep him behind me, and he's starting to now to pull away. So I got to get back in that slipstream. I got to try and make as few mistakes as possible. The car itself wasn't actually that bad. It was just one area that I was really struggling with, besides that quadruple left, was the chicane here. I could take this entry quite nicely, but the next left-hander, I couldn't ride that curb, that sausage curb, and I had to overslow the car more than I wanted to, where I lost a lot of time. So sector 1 was okay when I had the rear grip, but that final chicane, which usually in the forward direction I'm pretty strong in this direction and in this car, I just could not make it happen for me. So it was a little bit frustrating, but luckily I was still in the slipstream. The slipstream effect in GT Sport is quite strong at the moment, so that gives you a much better chance. Eventually I started to change my style, which I probably would have learned if I did more practice, which was to take that double right in third gear, and that settled the car. And then this next quadruple left-hander, I started to take in fifth gear, which also settled the rear a lot more. If you get this corner right, it's really satisfying, and I think this is another fantasy track that Gran Turismo has absolutely nailed. So now starting to think about my pit stop strategy, I want to get ahead of Pogo again and see if I can sort of bridge the gap to ROH Stig up ahead and try and sneak my way into the top 10 and then defend like crazy on the last lap. So let's see if that can happen. I've actually closed up to Pogo in the first sector. I just got a little bit too much wheel spin on the exit of that hairpin, so missed out again. And then I was starting to stress about the chicane for the reasons that I said earlier. So we had to make the magic happen. I'm sort of learning on the fly. Prior to this video though, prior to doing this race, I did watch TRL Lightning, Michael Hizel, absolute legend. He actually smoked everyone, and I saw that his strategy was to pit on lap 6. So if I put it on lap 5, I could get a bit of an undercut, hopefully bridge the gap, at least pass Pogo on the out lap. As you can see there, that pit stop was unbelievably quick by just skipping the entire thing. Luckily no trigger finger mistakes there, like going to the wrong tire or not refueling or anything like that. So still managing that part of the skills. But so far I've made one mistake. One is I didn't practice. That's a rookie error, and rushing into these races is never a good thing, especially at this level. I should respect my competitors a little bit more, and also, respect myself, because with a bit more practice, I think I could have done a little bit better. Also understanding the tires and the strategy, so I always recommend doing as much practice as possible for the FIA races. Of course, the daily races is a different thing. There's a lot less at stake, but you should be practicing for the FIA races. And the second mistake so far was running wide and losing track position to Pogo. So that was just driver error, and it was a line issue that I was making that. I was putting myself in danger the whole way through the race by taking the line that you saw there, and I wasn't hitting my apexes as I intended. So not perfect, and definitely looking to improve for the rest of the season. There I managed to get the chicane right in third gear, but that was on my outlap where I have maximum grip at the rear and there's no snapping that's going on. So when I had the rear grip it was okay, but it only lasted sort of 1 or 2 laps before the snapping started to happen. So you really have to settle down on the steering inputs. You have to be very, very patient on the power and brake in a straight line as possible. My undercut didn't quite work. I managed to bridge the majority of the gap to Pogo, but not enough to actually to get past him, which to me was a bit of an issue. But just in front of me were 2 guys, and I don't know where they came from. They must have had issues during my pit stop where they lost time together, and we managed to close, both of us managed to close the gap up to them. At this point here, is it Pogo or Pogu? It's Pogu. Anyway, I'm going to keep calling him Pogo because it's a legend like that. At this point here, in those first few corners, his tires went up to temperature, which really put me close, and I wanted to go for a move in this hairpin, but just lost a little bit of time. So my new strategy was, my whole strategy in sim racing at the moment is to be much more patient and just wait. Mostly because I'm trying to be a lot more patient in my real life racing as well. So this is the perfect place where I can practice that. If you get to do 2 or 3 real races on the sim each week, it's really good preparation for the real thing. And I gain the most value between sim racing and real racing. I gain the most value in the online races, which I carry those learnings through to the real stuff. Going down the inside here, Pogo made a small mistake on the exit of the chicane. I just sneak in front without really touching him, and managed to get the jump. And now I've really got my sights set on P11 at least, and frankly can't actually believe that my target of top 10 is maybe possible. So they go for a big move down the inside there, and we close right up. And now there's actually a small train behind me, myself and Joni from Finland. So now I'm really starting to dream. I'm like, is this really going to happen? Can I really get a top 10 with my first race back after basically 8 minutes of practice? Surely not. So now we're really sniffing, and I've already got it in my mind that if I'm close enough, I'll go for the move at the hairpin of the next corner, because if I can get into the top 10, I'll be so stoked. So here we go, lining him up, and he seems to open the door relatively easily. Yoni, sorry mate, I'm butchering your name. He misjudged slightly how early I was braking, and luckily we didn't touch. But he's now in my slipstream, and he's the major threat for me going forward. I'm keeping one eye on him with my rearview mirror, and also just trying to catch the Porsche in front, but I think he was actually quite quick. Who was it in front of me? Oh, it was Kryptonite, a very quick GT Sport driver. So trying to hunt him down, trying to save my tires, trying to protect my line from the Finn behind me, and still kind of dreaming of a 10th place finish here. I don't think I was close enough for P9. I could just see them in the distance, but it was just a little bit, I think, out of reach, considering that the last 2 laps of this race were going to be really tough, because I was basically spending those used tires that I would have spent on lap 6. I'm now going to have to spend them on lap 12 and 13. So it's going to be a tough one, but I thought to myself, at the very least, a top 10 could actually happen. So going through this quadruple left, managed to nail all the apexes as I desired, maximize the exit as I desired. Going through the S's here, the rear seems pretty settled, just trying to balance everything out. Really fun track. Honestly, I wish I could build these tracks in real life. Got everything sorted there, and now heading to the hairpin, braking around the 100 meters, and unfortunately the Finn, he misjudges his braking, pushes me wide. I lose 2 positions and the momentum. He does get a penalty for that one, which I suppose was justified, but I wasn't frustrated or anything. I was just a bit upset that the dream was slipping away because of the opportunity that I needed. I needed to get that 10th place before the final 2 laps, because those 2 laps I was going to defend like crazy. So now it's just a matter of like, can we get back past Pogo, who I'd been having a great race with, because obviously Johnny, the Finn, was going to serve his penalty now. So we pass him on the right, well, we're on the left, he's on the right, heading into the double right-hander here, just trying to carry as much speed through the first one, stopping the car more than you think for the second, because it's a downhill right-hander. There's a lot of understeer there if you get on the power too early, and then positioning the car to the right-hand side for this quadruple left. What I tried to do is straighten the car going in, settling the rear, and then I should have actually been closer to the apex there. That's what I was getting wrong in this race compared to all the other guys, and it gets me into trouble not only the first time where you saw me run wide, but again later in the race, just as I was getting closer to Pogo. Then through the S's here, you just got to be patient on the throttle and roll the throttle through there to help with the rotation, and then for this hairpin, brake into it, stop the car before the apex so that you can get on the power as early as you can for the exit. Again, always stick to the fundamentals, only get on the power at or after the apex, but I like to get it stopped and just point it towards the exit, because that was definitely helping with my tyre wear. If I try to carry too much speed through the hairpin, I was getting too much wheel spin on the exit. Then for the chicane, try to maximize the curbs as much as possible. You could see that I was being much more aggressive, but I couldn't carry the same amount of speed when I was cutting that left-hander. And then through the final right, just kind of roll off the throttle in the middle to get the car again pointed as straight as possible so that you can get onto full power as soon as possible for the exit. I think I'm going to start coaching in this direction as well, because it just turns up, the technicality of this track is amped up in the reverse direction. I wonder if they designed it first in the reverse direction and then decided to flip it around when they launch the track, because this way is definitely much more technical and difficult compared to the other version. Okay, so there I take too much curb and I lose some time. I'm really starting to struggle now with the tires, and just mindful that the guys behind me are going to start catching. Even the Finn, who got his penalty, he was quicker than both of us, both Pogo and myself, but we were just both doing a good job of keeping him behind us until he got that penalty. So here I can still see the 10th place guy, and I'm just hoping that I can keep the tires in one piece and hope for something to happen to the 2 guys in front. Maybe they get caught up in a scuffle or something, but despite being hit wide, overall the patience was paying off. The undercut almost paid off. I should have done a quicker outlap, but maybe was a bit too gentle in the tire. I actually didn't know how to handle it at all. You could also see that with my opening lap, a little bit too gentle, and this came down to the lack of practice. So another tip, by the way, is instead of just trying to set the best lap in the FIA sort of listing area, go to the lobby section and create a private lobby with the settings of this race, and try to do laps there with the fuel and with the correct fuel and tire wear ratings, because the car will feel very different in those settings compared to just the hot lap mode from the regular FIA menu. Okay, so going into the quadruple left, managed to get the first apex nice, thought I had everything, got a bit of snap oversteer and then ran wide, had a massive hit on the wall, and basically from here it's now with that mistake unfolding in front of my eyes, which I was pretty devastated about, and then just managing to keep it on the track. In all of that panic, I must have touched the TC button, so now I have to fix that, gather up my thoughts, and just think to myself, how am I going to manage the final few laps? How many laps? Yeah, so these are the final 2 laps where I was anticipating that my tires were going to start to go off. So at this point here, I lost so much time with 2 mistakes, being hit and being a bit slower than I should have, that now it's going to be a bit of a crazy one. We've got Kelster who is a really, really good driver from the UK, now sniffing my exhaust pipe, and he's catching quickly. He must have had 1 or 2 issues in the race. I know he had he got blocked in quali, so he started last, but then he had an invisible wall in front of him because he should have been higher up. But now I'm his next target. So moving to the right here, trying to break the slipstream. It's kind of helped a little bit where he didn't close up as much as I expected. Braking now for this double right. Again, trying to carry as much speed through the beginning and then over-slowing for the final one so I can get on the power without any snap oversteer or issues like that. Staying to the left to try and create like a gutter effect with the slipstream. I don't know if it actually works in this game, to be honest. And then just making sure that I don't crash through this part. So I was going very conservative after what happened the previous lap, and just didn't really have a good feeling for the car. There was a little bit of movement on the rear there. Now thinking to myself about the hairpin. I know he can't really overtake through these S's, so I maximize the S's and I focus on my apexes, taking my regular line, and just thinking to myself, when I exit this right-hander here, I need to be able to position the car to the inside so that he cannot go for the inside move. Then watching carefully with my rearview mirror, over-slowing at the apex of the hairpin so he cannot do the undercut, staying as tight as possible, which seemed to work. And by this point, to be honest with you, I was quite confident. However, Kelso goes for the move of moves. This is going to be one of the moves of the year. I was convinced that he was going to put it in the grass there, but he manages to go around the outside of the chicane, keeps it on the black stuff, then gets the snap oversteer over here. I think to myself, okay, now if I go around the outside of this long right, I still have a chance, but it turns out that I could maybe do a scissor undercut, get the slipstream, and now just tuck back in, heading to the line. I really don't want to lose this position, pop out, but in the end, he just got me. So those mistakes cost me a lot of time, a lot of places, but it was still a fun race. I enjoyed every minute. Felt like I've matured quite a lot. Thank you so much to my sponsors, Thrustmaster. If you guys want some coaching, hit me up. And obviously to my legendary patrons. Without them, this channel would not exist. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you around the next lap. Peace.